Well, if you're thinking about dipping a toe into the turbulent waters of politics, a local political consultant has some advice for you. Obi Umunna is a longtime campaign manager and the author of a new book called Running for Office 101, A Candidate's Guide to Getting Started. Thanks for being here, Obi. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So, I want to get to the book in a moment, but you just recently wrapped up your work on the Kamala Harris campaign. You were the Southern Battleground Regional Political and Coalitions Director for
Mhm,
that campaign.
mhm.
I'm sure a lot of hours put into it. Give us your reflections on what happened. Obviously, it's a disappointment for
Yeah.
you, but what do you think the deciding factor was in her loss?
Listen, I think one of the things that we learned from this campaign is that, people were hurting, right? And I think the economy was one of the biggest issues that came up on every poll and every kind of resource that we had, and they hadn't felt maybe the recovery in their pockets as they'd seen on TV or in the jobs reports. And I think the fact that they hadn't felt that yet really led to, some of the voting and a little bit of uncomfortableness with staying with the same kind of regime with you know with Kamala being the VP.
Yeah.
So
And, obviously she had a short campaign because Joe Biden stayed in the race as long as he did. How did you first hear about the fact that Joe Biden was actually going to make way for her?
so we found out just like majority of the people found out, which was on Twitter. We were actually in the process of calling delegates for Joe Biden at that very moment. And I think it was a decision that he made and he kept it close to his vest. And we actually found out through Twitter. And then our bosses called us to told us to stop calling delegates for Joe Biden. And we just at that moment, we maybe took maybe an hour off and we really worked on getting delegates on board for VP Harris.
Yeah. So shifting gears pretty much immediately. Um, so starting in local politics, I mean, that is sort of where you began.
Mhm.
You've managed campaigns. I just run through a few of them here. You worked for current school board members Daryl Willey, former school board members Warren Jones and Kelly Coker. You helped State Senator Tracy Davis
Mhm.
win in 2022. You worked for Judge Rhonda Peoples Waters, City Council members Brenda Priestley Jackson, Garrett Dennis, and Tommy Hazouri. So you have obviously been deep in the local political scene, but you've also done statewide and, of course, most recently national.
Mhm.
Um, Talk about that evolution. I mean, how is it different, for instance, when you were working for the gubernatorial races for Nikki Fried and Andrew Gillum than the local races?
Yeah, I mean, I think local races are my favorite because they're closer to home. I think the candidates and the constituents feel much closer to each other, and I think you're able to solve more problems on a local campaign sometimes than on these larger statewide campaigns. For a consultant myself, the work is different. The work is more on the bigger campaigns, managing groups of people. On the local campaigns, is actually getting in there and helping doing the work and being more hands on.
So, for people who don't know what the role of a political consultant is, what is it that you do?
I do a lot of different things depending on what campaign it is and who I'm working for. But mainly I tell people is I help them spend their money, right? I help them spend their money properly, but I help
Professionally help them
yeah,
spend their
and
money.
I make sure that they're using their resources to the fullest ability. And so my job is to make sure that when you are done with this campaign, we've given you the best chance to win. And I use my expertise in all different fields to help them do that.
It's almost like a professional shopper for the
Yes, it
political
is.
realm.
It is.
Let's talk about money, though. I mean, that's obviously an uh, unavoidable
Mhm.
large part of politics. Some people think way too large a part of politics. How does it figure into local politics versus statewide politics?
So money is everything. Money is what allows you to be able to talk to more voters, right? I think what unfortunately it is more and more becoming a bigger part of politics, but like it is much easier to talk to more voters when you have the money to pay for TV ads and radio ads, canvassers and whatnot. If you don't have that money, you're doing it through volunteers, you're doing it through other resources, and it's a lot harder.
So, are races here just getting more expensive to the point that it's getting harder for just an ordinary person to mount a reasonable campaign?
I agree. I think what I do still like about local campaigns is that there is a lot of these districted races, which means that there's a finite group of people that you can go after. And I think you still have an opportunity in these local races to make something happen. But even more and more, even these city council races have become super expensive.
What about the influence of you kind of hear people talk about, Jacksonville politics versus Tallahassee politics and kind of the influence in recent years that has been a little bit more, I guess, cutthroat perhaps,
Yeah.
or maybe a little uglier than previously.
Yeah, back in the beginning of my political career, I worked for Mayor John Payton. I was an intern. I got out of college and worked there, and I will tell you the difference in politics then versus now is that when we worked for Mayor John Payton after the election, Democrats and Republicans really worked together all the time. Really, it was about getting stuff done, making sure the trash was picked up, making sure the lawns were cut, and making sure the city was moving forward. I think now what you're seeing is that sometimes people have their own political aspirations and they're letting that kind of get in the way of the local work. And I think that really is not what local politics should be about. I think it should be about really helping the city move forward and improving life for the citizens of Jacksonville.
What about Mayor Donna Deegan's victory as a Democrat as the mayor of Jacksonville? Do you think that's kind of a one-off given these recent elections where there was such a shift, nationally to the right and to the Republican Party?
I don't think it's a one-off, but I do think Donna was an amazing candidate and she had built an amazing like campaign, but also she was known here in Jackson. People knew who she was. I think if you look at the bigger cities in Florida, they all have Democratic mayors. But I think Donna's campaign was one of hope, and I think she's been delivering that. But I don't think that's a one-off for these big cities.
So let's talk about this book that you've come out with now. It actually starts off with a quotation from Theodore Roosevelt praising the person striving in the arena, saying in part, "There is no effort without error." But basically saying that the highs and the lows and all of the good and the bad that comes with running for a political seat at least gives you a sense of this daring and this great potential, so that even if you fail, you're doing it in a kind of profound and affecting way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wanted that quote in there because I do think more and more we're getting away from good people running for office. And I do think like we need to really encourage the best of our citizens to step in and run for public office. And I wanted to create a book that made it less overwhelming for people to even consider that. And I think why I picked that quote is so important for people to step into the arena. It is much easier for you to wait on the sidelines and not be a part of what's happening, but if we want to see true change, we need great candidates, and that's why I'm in this work. Is I enjoy working with some. I've worked with some of the best candidates and people that really are true believers and want to change the way people think and the way this government works. And I think if I can encourage more people to do that, I think we're going to have a better government overall.
If you're just joining us, we are talking to political consultant Obi Umunna about his new book about running for office for first time candidates and how to get started. If you would like to join our conversation, you can give us a call at 904 549 2937. You can also email First Coast Connect at wjct.org, or you can tag us on social media. Obi, what is the most common mistake of a new candidate?
I think, unfortunately, the most common mistake of a new candidate is that they believe what they see on TV is what campaigning is, right? I think there is people that watch West Wing or whatever that there's this glamour about giving speeches and going to debates where actually working on a campaign is literally like spending 8 hours on the phone calling donors or walking through a neighborhood when it's raining and trying to knock on doors or calling volunteers and asking them to come and help. Some of the work of campaigning isn't glamorous, and I think sometimes people that are running for office think that that is what it is, and it's not that if you really want to be successful.
I mean, so given those realities, how do you sell somebody? It doesn't sound like a heck of a lot of fun wandering through neighborhoods and knocking on doors in the rain.
And I think that is why you want to get the best people, right? I think people, one of the first chapters in the book is about why you're running. I think if you are really running for the right reasons, you're going to do what it takes. You're going to do that work in order to get elected. I think when you get people that are in there for the wrong reasons, then it's much harder to sell them on sitting in a place for 8 hours or walking through a neighborhood when it's 100 degrees in August. And,
Mm.
I think it is really about finding the candidates that really care about the community and want to work hard no matter what.
So give us a little insight into this book. I mean, when you offer some practical tips for people to get started, what are kind of like the main things people should be thinking about before they decide to run?
Really, there's two things that I tell people they should do. Is first, the one that I hinted on already is really know why you're running. I think it's super important to understand why you're running and why you're going to be helpful to the community. And then the second thing is talk to your family and friends. I think one of the things the other mistake that candidates don't realize is when you're running for office, your family is running with you. Your friends are running with you. Talk to your spouse and see if they're okay with the scrutiny that's going to come forward. Make sure that your family's okay with this. I think the best candidates have gotten that buy-in and they're along for the ride. And I think those are the top two things. And the next is start talking to your community members and making sure that you really understand the problems of the community and come up with answers for them.
I want to take a call from Lewis in Ortega. Good morning, Lewis. Go ahead.
Good morning, y'all. Happy New Year. I just wanted to ask two questions. First, with no money, how many doors a day? And then, how far out from your election date should you start the campaign? Like, how far out do you go ahead and file those papers? And like, is there a thing about what you don't want to let people know too early? You don't want to give the competition a heads up. But mainly, how far out from your election date and how many doors? If you're looking at it like, hey, I'm bootstrapping this campaign, how many doors should I be hitting a day? Should I be walking Lawton?
Mm.
Thanks.
Those are great questions. I love these questions. So first, let's talk about the doors per day. I mean, I think when we talk about canvassing, I think you want to be able to hit 10 to 20 doors an hour. That's an average for a regular canvasser. I think you should be if you're thinking about running for office and you're serious about it, you should be doing that 3 to 4 hours a day because you don't want to do it at night. You don't want to do it overnight, and then you want to hit the weekend. So you should be trying to hit 100 to 150 doors a week if you're really going to be doing this on your own. I don't suggest only doing it by yourself. I suggest like if you don't have money, get volunteers or friends and family to help you to increase that. But at least 100 to 150 doors a week for a candidate starting out. For his second question about how far you can start out, I do think there's different kind of answers to this particular question. I think some candidates like to come in early and make sure that no of the other candidates are coming in and they're able to show that they've raised a lot of money and that influences people dropping in and out. I think for a newer candidate, I would suggest that you get in kind of midway. I think part of the book, I tell you to go speak to people in the community. I think you want to do that before you declare, right? So they don't think that they're only talking to you because of that. I think you want to take some time and be in the community first and then declare. So in this cycle, particularly, I wouldn't do it this year.
And
I
you're
would
talking about city elections?
any election, let's say any election on a 2-year cycle, right?
Okay.
If you in the there's because there are going to be elections in 2 years. Let's just say if I was thinking about running, I would spend this first year being in the community, not running for not officially declared, and I would declare a year out. A year out allows you to be able to like kind of raise enough money and be in the game, but you spend a lot of time in the community without the candidate hanging over your head. When you're a candidate, there's also ethical things that you can't do at that point, and so you want to be able to do that before you declare.
Got an email from Mark. He has a couple questions. One, it says, how does your guest help candidates focus and help voters focus on local issues when there's so many national issues that leak into the local elections? And then his second question is, why run for office when America elected a felon who tried to overthrow democracy? So, kind of what's the, I guess, what's the point overall?
Yeah, yeah. That's listen. I love these questions. The first question I'll answer is, I think you have to speak to the issues that your community tells you, right? I think you obviously are going to come in with issues that you think are important, but I think you're going to hear over and over, hey, and let's just say for a local, hey, this light is always out and there's always accidents here, and you've heard that from 10 to 15 different people in an hour. I think that's when you start moving those issues into the issues that you're talking about. As far as, the second question is why should you run? Even more now should you run for office to give people alternative choices to the choices that we have. I think we can never give up on our government and give up on the ability to bring new and good people into office. If we do that, we're basically leaving it to those people. 4 years ago, Joe Biden won. We'll have another opportunity in 4 years to elect another president. But if we give up on our government now, we're leaving it to people that can't really be trusted.
What about just the bruising reality of campaigns? How do you prepare candidates for that? Or are the people that you're dealing with seasoned enough that you don't have to kind of explain that?
No, people are not ready for that. I think you're never ready for that. I think unless you've run before, it's very hard for you to get through that. I think in the book we talk a little bit about kind of setting up some kind of some regiments for yourself, walks or some people that can talk to and stress relief and those kind of things that'll be helpful as the campaign goes on. But that is part of what my job as a consultant is to see when someone is stressed, is breaking, find ways to give them alternatives. Sometimes it's taking a day off. Sometimes it's going to spend time with your family or friends. A lot of times, I've seen candidates go out and canvass and talk to voters, and they're re-energized. And
Mm.
so it just depends on the candidate themselves. And
But what do you tell them? I mean, particularly about things like social media. What should they expect for themselves and their family?
part of the intake that we do with people is really we try to get them to tell us, hey, what is gonna come out that you're gonna be afraid of. We try to get that out. Sometimes they don't tell us that, and sometimes we get that later in the game. But I think we try to prepare them for your worst is gonna be out here.
And that's because of something called opposition
Yes,
research.
yes. I mean, I think if anybody's running in a campaign where clients have money, they're gonna find out as much as possible about you. And I think, but I do say that people are not prepared. It is very hard to be prepared for what people are going to do when you run for office. Your friends and family, even, things that people that you think are supporters of yours may not be supporters of yours. People are going to say things about you that they don't really know. They're going to make decisions about you based off of inadequate information. And I think the best candidates have tough skin, but they don't know that they are in that place until they actually go through it.
You still encourage people to, despite knowing that that might be coming their way, because that's tough.
The first thing I do is I try to talk you out of running. And if I can talk you out of running, then you don't need to be in it. But if after I try to talk you out and you still want to be a part of it, then we will work with you and make sure that you're ready to go. But I do talk people out because I want people to feel like they weren't talked into it, that they really want this. But I do still think we need good people.
So if people are interested in, for instance, just even looking at this book, how can they access it?
It's on Amazon. It's actually free on Kindle right now, and then it's a cheap paperback. It'll be to you in a day or so. We designed the book to be extremely short because when people are thinking for office, it's so overwhelming. We wanted to be a quick read that you could read over and be ready to go. But you can pick it up on Amazon right now.
Obi Umunna, he is the author of Running for Office 101, A Candidate's Guide to Getting Started. Thank you so much for being here, Obi.
Thank you for having me.